Hey, welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. Now, on a previous episode, I did a video where I talked about my Geek Outdoors channel and mainly the wonderful geek community that has grown out of that. Now, I'm a very small YouTube channel. I have less than 1,000 subscribers. And then I was thinking in that particular video, there are other small geek channels that are just starting on their own. And so in that video, I asked that people who do have small geek channels, less than 1,000 subscribers, to go ahead and leave their channels in the comments, and then I'll go check them out. And if there was a channel that I could connect with and that I thought was really valuable, then I would go ahead and talk about them in a future episode, which is this one right here. So that's what we're going to be doing today on the very first part. But on the second part of the video, I'm going to be talking about my own YouTube journey up until this point. So let's go ahead and check out these other geek channels that you should probably check out. Okay, so the very first channel that I want to talk about is Big Daddy. A very interesting name. What I like about Big Daddy is that he is a self-confessed distro hopper. So he changes distros quite a bit. However, what I also like is that he does take his time with each one of his distros. For example, Antergos. He's done multiple videos on this particular distro, and at the same time, he spends quite a bit of time talking about KDE and Plasma as well. What I like about his channel is that he takes his time in explaining it in a way that makes sense to people who are not really tech heavy, and also at the same time people who are more Windows users. So that's something that I like to do on my videos as well, but I really enjoy the way he explains it. And also he does a really cool podcast with his friend Rob. And his friend Rob has his own channel called Linux Quest. It is a little bit larger than 1,000 subscribers, but you could check his channel out as well. And the main person here is Rocco. And he just started his channel, it seems, just very recently, as a matter of fact, just in October. But his channel is growing extremely fast. And like I said, I like the way that he takes his time to explain things in a way that makes sense to normal people. And the distros that he picks, obviously Linux Mint is my favorite, but the distros that he picks, it makes a lot of sense for people who are new to Linux to actually try these out. So that's the first channel I want to talk about, Big Daddy. And like I said, if you do like Rocco's channel, you might also like his friend's channels, Rob's Linux Quest. So the other channel I want to talk about is Fratum. And Fratum stands for Frame Relay Asynchronous Transfer Module, if I'm not mistaken. So Fratum, what he likes to do is he likes to focus on Let's Play. So he is a gamer, and in terms of his Linux experience, he has a lot. He's actually a Linux system administrator, and he has been using Linux for like 20 years. So he knows quite a bit about Linux. However, his main focus is on gaming. So he does a lot of Linux gaming here. Not only just the games itself, but he spends a lot of time talking about things that are interesting to him, which I do appreciate. And also, he does do some Raspberry Pi stuff as well. He actually did a few contests on them. And if you look back at all his videos, they're really gaming specific. But at the same time, you know, he is a Linux lover. And so as most as possible, I think every single one of these games, they are all on Linux. There is times where he will run Doom, like here, on Wine. So he's using the new Vulkan API here. So Linux gaming, it's got a long way to go. But I see that, you know, as I've talked about before, it's coming. You know, maybe not at the levels of Windows. However, just the fact that we are going to be getting more games in Linux, it's great that we have other Linux gaming channels arise out of this. So those are the two main channels that I wanted to focus on today, and I really do appreciate them for sending me their channels. And also, you know, this is something that I think a lot of people who are interested not only in Linux but also being a geek, that they would appreciate as well. So let's go ahead and talk about the second part of the video, which is actually my journey on YouTube. So if you actually go to my Geek Outdoors channel, I currently have 855 subscribers, okay? And a lot of times people think that it's all about just getting subscribers, where if you are new to YouTube, it's a lot more than that, and it's going to take a lot longer than you would expect. Now, there are certain channels like the aforementioned Big Daddy where I think he grew extremely fast. and my hat's off to them. You know, that takes a lot of work. But for my own journey, it took a while. So I'm gonna show you my journey up until this point. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is my very first video that I did. Okay, so like I said, I have 373 videos. So if I go down here, the very first video that I did was this one right here. It was a Double Dragon video. I posted this on October 21st, 2013. I only had 147 views, and it actually got a copyright strike. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's the gameplay. But this very first video, I actually recorded it using my Sony camera, and I recorded my television. So, which was pretty funny. But it was my very first YouTube video. I was really nervous, and I was so nervous that for many videos I didn't show my face. Okay, so as you can see here, all these old videos, I think I have about 33, 34, 35 old videos before I transitioned to starting geekoutdoors.com. Now geekoutdoors.com, let me see if I can find when I had that first video. And you know, as you're doing this, all these videos, there's a lot of times where you feel like, you know, it's probably never gonna happen, you know, because you're making all these videos, especially if you're making a lot of videos, and nobody's watching them. You know, nobody's watching them, nobody's subscribing, as you saw by that Double Dragon video. And here, so I did my very first Geek Outdoors video on October 21st, which is kind of funny because that's exactly 2 years after I posted my very first video on this particular channel. Now, after that, let me show you the analytics in terms of my subscriber growth and views, just to kind of show you the whole progression. So first, we're going to go into the number of subscribers. So if you look here, 0 subscribers. Okay, so up until, let's say, October 21st, that's when I posted my first video, I only had 1 subscriber. So in 2 years, I only had 1 subscriber. That can be pretty demoralizing if you are a person who is doing YouTube videos. However, over time, that number did increase as I kept making more videos, as I kept improving, and also you know, getting better at doing them. My subscribers kept going up and up and up, and you know, up to this point I have 846, or actually it was 855 on the last one that hasn't tracked it yet. And then if you look at the actual views, that's also had a similar upward trend where over time it goes up. So here I had 55 views, you know, and it's pretty amazing when you think about your progression. And then, you know, when you think about, oh, I had 55 views, and nowadays you could get thousands of views on the same day. And the last thing is the watch time. So it's really important to remember that people are actually spending their time to watch your videos, and that's really hard to do because everybody is really pressed for time. And as you can see, it keeps going up, and this weird huge spike that I had here is because I was trying out some different marketing things, and that was a very short-term thing. But as you can see, there's been an upward trend as I've been working on all my videos. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about is actually, what about the lessons that I've learned from creating these YouTube videos? Well, some of the lessons that I learned, first off, is that if you are going to be starting a YouTube channel, just put up a video. Okay, there are a lot of things that you could do before that, thinking about your concepts, thinking about videos or whatever, but sometimes you just need to just put up a video because until you actually do that, you could spend all your time in analysis paralysis and you end up not doing anything. Okay, and the second thing is, go look at YouTube channels that you like. You know, and a lot of times they're going to be bigger YouTube channels. So some of the channels that I like is Joe Collins for Linux, and also Quidsup as well. I do have other channels that I like, but since the other channels there are Linux, I want to go ahead and focus on that. So kind of look and see how the successful ones are doing it. And that doesn't mean you need to go copy them, but you need to kind of see the things that they're doing that work, and then try to emulate that success as well. And then another thing that you want to do is actually, you know, do your research, you know, and what I mean by that is, if there is a topic that you are going to talk about, do the best research that you can. You know, like I myself, I am not an expert at Linux by any means. However, I do some research on the things that I'm going to talk about, and also I'm interested in a lot of different topics, just not just Linux. However, Linux is something that I enjoy. If you look at my channel, I have movies, I have thoughts on geek news, and so forth. And so I do have a variety of things that I like, and I love older games as well, older video games. But going back to the whole concept of looking at people who are more successful than you or who you like, go ahead and check out what they're doing and then do your best to emulate that. Another thing that I would recommend is consistency. Okay, I myself, I like to put up a video like maybe 4 to 5 times a week and sometimes more. It's because I like doing it, and that's a huge part of getting more views, getting more subscribers. You need to be consistent, and with the consistency you really need to basically think about something that you really enjoy talking about, because if you're going to be doing videos regularly, if you don't enjoy it, you're probably not going to do it. You're probably going to do it for a few weeks or a few months, and then you're probably going to stop. But for myself, all the videos that I do, like I said, I've quite a few videos. I can do many more because there are a lot of subjects that I really enjoy talking about, okay, and I could continually talk about. So it's a lot easier for me to put out videos on a regular basis. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about in terms of what I've learned up until this point is whenever you're making a YouTube channel, it depends on what you're going to do it for as well. Like for myself, this is really entertaining, it's fun, but at the same time, I do want this to be a business as well. And so if you are going to approach it from a business standpoint, you do need to do other things besides YouTube. So I myself, I have my own website as well, which is at geekoutdoors.com, and I do put different content there. I do a lot of writing and many other things, just my thoughts, my geeky thoughts. So it's just another extension of my YouTube channel, and I do have other things that I do besides this as well. So the whole idea of it is that, and you probably hear this a lot, is branding. And so that's what I'm doing with geekoutdoors.com. It is branding. So the YouTube is a big part of my branding, but I also have many other things that I do that all tie into it, because I want this to be a long-term thing, and so there's actually a business aspect to it as well. And then if you are doing YouTube videos and you do want to get more views, more subscribers, besides the things that I talked about, you definitely want to learn things such as thumbnails, such as SEO, and then also tags and so forth, which is all related to SEO. And then also you want to learn some marketing as well. And so those things I'm still learning right now, and I do feel like you could make improvements on a regular basis. So that's pretty much my thoughts on not only the small YouTubers that I talked about earlier, but also my journey up until this point. There's probably a lot of other things that I didn't mention that just kind of escapes my mind right now, but I didn't want this video to be too long. So if you had any thoughts on these small YouTube channels or your own journey on YouTube, be sure to leave them in the comments area below. And as always, if you did get value out of these videos, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. See you in another episode. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com, and I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.